we go. Okay, everybody, welcome to what I'm going to start calling the Adult Industry Museum here, where we're going to have a history series. And I'm concerned with people that were authentically there, not people that say they were there, pretend to be there. I remember you, which is why I, reached out to you, and I really want to record your life story, what happened, and also the outrage that I had when I saw what they did to you. I mean, people don't understand with all this media about sex trafficking, they don't understand that madams were trying to protect everybody, that we were literally the front line of defense, not like the police were going to help us. We were the ones out there protecting everybody. So, I mean, just the outrage of what they did to you, that's why I wanted to, and thank you for being willing to share your story so that other people can understand what's happening to everything. Wait a minute, I'm getting a thing that says this is going to end in 10 minutes. Okay, I'll fix that later. Okay, because this might go off in 10 minutes, but that's okay. That'll be the first segment. So let me start with just introduce, because people are going to wonder who you are, why you're called the Death Row Madam. I mean, first, tell our listeners or viewers who you are.
My name is Sherry Woods.
Uh-huh.
And I wrote a book about my life story. It's called Death Row Madam, Exposing Sex and Drugs in the Entertainment Industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a madam in the 70s and 80s in Los Angeles. And I ended up getting framed, arrested, and imprisoned, and they put me on death row for arranging a blind date. And I wrote my book while I was in prison. I was in prison amongst the Manson murderers. And I had, with the help of a guard, I smuggled the manuscript out of the prison.
And wow, this is like straight out of some movie that you actually smuggled it out of prison.
Yes, yeah, a guard helped me to smuggle it out because if they had found the manuscript and what I was writing about, you probably wouldn't be talking to me now, because I also was including what was going on around me in the prison at that time, which included how 2 inmates were murdered. And to this day, they're unsolved crimes. And I had a friend that was the witness to it. So in the book, I talk about who murdered these 2 inmates.
Wow, that's just I'm sorry, I was speechless for a moment there. It's just so mind blowing. And even for what you were running a service where you were literally, people don't understand that back at that time in Los Angeles, we had a record number of serial killers, got pimps coked out of their minds. I mean, it was so dangerous back then that we were just trying to protect everybody. And this is what they did to you.
Yeah, I talk about that in my book, in fact. At the time when the Hillside Stranglers were murdering girls all over Los Angeles, they were finding girls' bodies in the hillsides. They had no idea who the killer was, and it turned out to be 2 killers. But at that time, the police were busy hiding out in my neighbor's garage, putting my house under surveillance rather than being out there looking for these serial killers.
Well, okay, let me start at the beginning. How did you get started? I know you were, an actress to begin with. So how did you go from being a young up and coming actress to being a madam? How did that all get started?
Well, it's a very long story. It's all in my book, Death Row Madam.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the Midwest, and I was married. My first husband was a gangster who ended up in prison. And then I was modeling. I went to modeling school, got a modeling degree, and started modeling around the Twin Cities, and met this guy that I had actually known in high school and hadn't seen in many years, who was the manager at a Holiday Inn there. His parents owned the hotel, and we fell in love, and we were going to get married. And I wrote my husband a Dear John letter. And then my fiance came up murdered. One of those unsolved cases where they really didn't know what happened to him. But during that period of time, while I was modeling, we had heard about an agency in England called Rent-A-Bird.
Like
Bird
the
is an
bird.
English term for a woman.
Right.
And so it was a dating service. And we were all joking because, we didn't make much money. We were all
Mm-hmm.
single moms. Uh, and we said, boy, I wouldn't mind getting paid to go out to dinner or to a sporting event with someone. So, as a fluke, I put a little one line ad in the paper: date a model, $10 an hour. I thought it would be unique if the girls were all professional models that the guys dated.
Mm.
So it was more or less like a joke. And the next day, my phone was ringing off the hook.
I
I had
bet.
all these guys calling. I want a date with a model. Well, in 1971, $10 an hour actually was a lot of money.
That's where the joke, the $2 whore came from, because actually $10 was a lot of money back then, right?
Yeah. So this just was a total fluke. And before you knew it, Parade Magazine contacted me and said, we're going to come in town. We want to do an exclusive interview with you and your models with our staff photographer. They did a big story on me. The local newspaper did a write-up on me. Jim Klobuchar, whose daughter now is better known as Amy Klobuchar, he,
Mm.
he did a story on me. And I was named Businesswoman of the Year in the Twin Cities.
Wow.
And I was doing local TV shows and radio shows. And I was on one time with Superman, the
Mm.
old original Kirk Allen. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, well, if you ever move to California, look me up.
Mm.
So when my fiance was killed, I was devastated, to say
Oh, I
the
bet.
least. I mean, not only had I gone through a bad marriage at a young age, and now my fiance was murdered. So I decided to pack up my two little kids and
Mm.
head to Hollywood in my Carmen Gia.
Oh, how cute, a
Yeah.
Carnegie. Okay.
And so that was around 1973. And I contacted Superman, and he took me around to all the studios, and I started at the top, meeting all the top producers and directors.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never acted before. I had no resume, no acting experience, no photos, and here's all these other professional actors who couldn't get their foot in the door. And
Mm.
I'm coming in there to the big studios, meeting the top people: Mervyn Leroy, Wizard of Oz, and
Mm-hmm.
all the top people. And so in my book, I say I started at the top and worked my way down. Um, because what happened eventually was I started encountering the casting couch.
Mm.
And I got so disgusted with all these powerful men in Hollywood, producers, directors, casting agents, trying to use their job position to get free sex in promises for movie roles. And there was one producer in particular at Paramount Studios, which I write about in my book, uh, who, after my efforts, was walked right off the studio lot. I could talk about that in a minute. But
Mm-hmm.
I was so devastated by that situation, especially, that I decided to turn the tables around on these guys. And I started an agency, and I called it Sherry's Angels, which I
Oh, how
named
cute.
kind of
Well, yeah,
similar to
Charlie's Angels was big then, wasn't it?
right. Charlie's Angels was real big at that time. So I called it Sherry's Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And I started an agency. I thought, if I could do it in Minnesota and be successful, I can do it here. And so I turned the tables around, and now all these horny producers and directors and people were calling me up for girls, needing me more than I needed them.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the money just started rolling in. So I didn't need to go through that casting couch routine and the humiliation that's been going on for so many years. It
Right.
actually started way back when. They call it, so, now they have the movements and the sexual harassment. They call it sex trafficking, which is a totally different thing, but they're trying to tie that
Mm-hmm.
into the same thing, but basically it's been going